KNAC.com. Thanks for joining us again. I'm fucking stoked to have Steve Shalaty from Immolation. How's it going, bro?
Good, man. Good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
A pleasure. We are talking about Immolation and the new Acts of God coming out next month through Nuclear Blast. Are you pretty stoked for this?
Dude, I'm super stoked. I don't think I've ever been so stoked for an album to come out, man.
And it's been about 5 years since Atonement, your last release.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big gap in time. Was that like done on purpose?
No, you know what? Atonement ended up doing really, really well, like beyond our expectations. And we did a lot of touring for that, man. We toured all over the world. We did the US like a bunch of times. There was a couple tours that just came up that we weren't planning on, like when we did the part of the Decibel tour with Morbid Angel. You know, so we ended up being a lot busier for that than we expected. Although we had started to write the new album before we finished that touring cycle. But right after that touring cycle stopped is when COVID hit. And so for us, the timing was okay because, you know, it was time for us to start working on the new stuff and get it cranked out. But just because of the circumstances, it was delayed, you know what I'm saying? So there was not a hurry to jump into the studio right away and get an album released because, you know, just because of the way things were. So it really played into our hands as far as giving us time to work on it and develop it. And man, we actually got to get together and play some songs together and practice it, you know what I mean? Which on previous albums was, you know, not really, we weren't able to do that, you know, so that makes a huge difference, man.
And then so what can we expect from Acts of God? Like you guys seem to like just turn it up a notch with every album, and you have this consistency. Like what's tell us about Acts of God and what can people expect?
Well, it's the arrangements and the pace of the album is, I would say, somewhat similar to Atonement, but there's a lot more dirgy parts on it. The sound is a little different. We had Alex in the studio with us this time. He played all the rhythm guitar parts, and he shared leads with Bob, which is totally unique. Like I can't even remember the last album where a rhythm guitar player played on it. Like Bob plays all the guitars on all the albums, you know. So that was really cool, and it lent a really cool feel to it. But being as we had the time that we did, man, like I said, like I really got to tweak the drum parts and really develop those drum parts and make them perfect for every part. And there's a lot of wide open spaces on this one that I'm not used to. You know, death metal drummers, sometimes they'll freak out, you know what I mean? If you got like too slow or too much space there. And so I was able to be more creative, you know, than I would have if I'd been rushed, you know, or like things had been the normal way, you know. So yeah, it's cool. It's I think we dialed in the production more on this one. I love the bass tone on there, and the guitar tone is extra heavy, like I said, because you got two different guys playing that same part instead of one guy playing the part twice, you know. So you get this fuller, more organic sound there too. It just came out really heavy, man. I'm liking it, man. We tweaked the hell out of the drums. I was tweaking drum EQ and stuff like that back and forth with Zach, like, dude, up to the bell, man. Like I think I actually sent him an email like after it was done and done, and I was like, oh, could you tweak this, you know? And he was like, dude, it's done, we're done. So yeah, man, I mean, we put the time and the effort into it, and yeah, super psyched, man. People are freaking out. They love it so far. So, you know, the first two tunes we released were just blowing our mind.
The Age of No Light and Apostle were the first teasers that we've had so far. Some awesome videos, some amazing imagery, really awesome artwork. Artwork has always been a connection with you and Immolation, and like the cut between covers and videos. Like, is that on purpose? Like you're trying to tell a story through the visuals as well?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've ever achieved it to this level before, but the coordination of the sound of the album and the sound of the songs and the mood and the artwork and the lyrics and that all being enmeshed and I don't want to say uniform, but like, you know, like it's all part of one thing, you know what I mean? And it all matches. I don't think we've ever achieved that like we have on this album. It's really like, it's really cool, man. Like when I first got the artwork and I'm like listening to the album and I'm looking at the artwork and reading lyrics, you know what I mean? And the inlay artwork and shit, it's freaking creepy, dude. It's like I, you know, I was raised Catholic, you know what I mean, until I was early teens, like Roman Catholic, and so that kind of stuff never, it's always in you, you know what I mean, when you see something blasphemous or whatever, you know what I mean. And this shit was like creeping me out, man. The way everything came together and the feel of everything was like, it
so
was really cool.
essentially it's like the perfect album practically, right?
Man, it's damn near for us, you know what I mean. Like every time we write an album, we get together and we're like, you know, look, we got the lineup, we got the time, we got the equipment. Why can't we make this the best one? Why can't this be the best one yet? You know what I'm saying? And we really started to hammer away at that concept since starting with Majesty. I remember getting together with the guys before Majesty, and Bill was in the lineup at the time, but we had been together for 2 albums before that, you know what I mean, and toured a ton that lineup, you know. And I was like, dude, we've been playing with each other for a long time. There's no reason we can't put out the best Immolation album ever this time, you know what I mean? Right. And it's been that attitude every time since then, you know.
Right.
So I think it was just a perfect storm of the situation coming together. And unfortunately, it took a pandemic to do it. But, you know, we had the right amount of time where we could write these songs and then get together. Those guys would come in from out of state, you know, which during a pandemic is not easy either. You know, there was a lot of state restrictions for a while, and come to Ohio and get together in the practice spot for 3 days straight and jam those songs. And that teaches you so much about what that song needs and how it needs to be recorded and, you know, all these things. So, you know, it was a perfect storm of circumstances for us on this album, and I think it shows. It came out pretty well, man.
That's awesome. Yeah, like the last couple of years, if anything that came out of it that was anything positive was like the new focus that a lot of people have, especially artists, musicians, our new appreciation that we have for every moment. And, you know, like you said, you guys are able to jam, and it's like, you know, it must have felt damn good when you guys were in a room together again.
Amazing, dude. Especially when knowing that this was music that hadn't been recorded yet, and we were working on it, you know what I mean? We were honing it and developing it, you know what I mean? And that's what I really needed, especially as a drummer too. Like I've been with Immolation for a long time, and it's been this way pretty much since I joined them. This long distance, email me the song, I'll email you the drum tracks, you know, that kind of pre-production and that kind of putting stuff together. And I'm not used to that. Song, the band I came from, we practice 6 days a week. You know what I mean? That's how you write a song. You get together and you jam it out and shit. So to get back to that organic feel was important for me to figure out how I wanted to do things. And I know a lot for them too. And, you know, Ross got to play with, you know, start playing with lyrics and stuff that way and where he wanted to sing. And it was just like, it was very important developmentally. And I don't think we'll skip that anymore. You know, we did a lot of we did a lot of albums rather where, you know, the first day of the tour was the first time we played those songs together as a band. You know what I'm saying? Which is fucking nuts, right? I mean,
a lot of pressure.
Yeah, totally. You know, but we got used to it, and that was the way we did it, just because we lived so far away from each other. But now doing it this way with this album, I don't think we're going to skimp on that part of it, because I think that helped a lot in the development. So,
and when you guys release this album, that's also the first day of the tour, right?
Yeah, bam, February 18th.
Yeah, all right. That's going to be awesome, and I'm looking forward to catching you guys here in LA again.
Awesome, dude. Come out. Yeah. Don't hesitate. Come up. You know, introduce yourself. I'll meet. You know, introduce you to the rest of the guys, and you know.
Totally, bro. Totally.
It'll be good. It'll be good to be on the West Coast for fucking sure.
Oh yeah, man. I know a lot of people are stoked and waiting, man. We're just biding our time, you know, to you guys. Last time I saw you guys was I believe it was the Mayhem gig that you guys did.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that was a good handful of years back. That was an amazing show. Yeah. And then I also ran into you guys at NAMM. You guys were all like together as a like going around everywhere. Yeah, we were at NAMM. Right, I was with my other buddy Chris, who's also a drummer. Shout out to Chris. He's a great guy. And how was your NAMM experience?
That was amazing. It was my first time ever, man.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was awesome. That's mind blowing. It's too much.
Too much.
We realized that was first time for all of us, and we realized right away, like, yo, you need more than just a couple days. You need to like get, you know, 3 days there at least to see everything, to talk to everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can't wait till we can do it again. Tell you what, that's an amazing thing.
Yeah, they moved it to summer now, which is I think the first time. Instead of having it during the winter, they moved it to the summer now. So
Cool.
yeah, hopefully you guys get done with the tour and you guys can jet on over to West Coast and you know catch the
That would
next
be
game.
sweet. That
Yeah.
would be totally sweet,
Yeah.
man.
What was your favorite part as far? I mean, like like drum geeks, like we're talking drummers here, Like
Uh-huh.
what was something that you saw that stood out to you, like a favorite toy that you got to play with or something?
It was killer to see the Sabian place, because they had a guy in there behind plexiglass, and he was like making cymbals, you know what I mean? And so I've never seen that hands on. I've never been down to the factory or whatever. So for them to bring that part of the factory out and make it part of their presentation there was awesome. I've never seen anything like that in my life, man. It was awesome.
Very cool, very cool. Let's talk some more gear.
Mhm.
Now we know you use Remo heads, right? You use like the ebony, I believe it called or something.
Ebony pinstripe, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, and those
Yeah,
those are probably your big sound, man.
Yeah, I have gigantic tom-toms, so I needed something that was gonna calm them down a little bit. You know what I mean? You need something that's gonna handle that ring, that amount of resonance and stuff. And for me, that was the only way to go. Yeah.
And what
Awesome.
are they? Tell us more about your drum setup.
Okay. It's a Mapex Orion. I bought it right before I recorded Majesty and Decay, because I had realized after Shadows in the Light that in order to get the kind of drum sound that I was trying to mimic that was on the earlier Immolation releases, I needed bigger toms. I needed a new kit. I needed to upgrade my kit. All the Immolations always had the huge cavernous drum fills.
Thunderous, like, yeah.
Yeah, so I got Mapex Orion with supersized toms, 12, 13, 14 on the rack, and 16 floor tom, 22 by 18 kicks, and I've got a Mapex Black Panther all steel snare that's just out of control with any other head. So I actually use a Kevlar like marching drum head on the snare. And it's awesome, and I never have to replace it on tour. And, you know what I'm saying? I never have to worry about that thing breaking. I remember we did a tour before the Mayhem tour. We did a tour with Cavalera Brothers, and Igor broke his snare head one night. It was after we played right before them. We were main support, and so they had grabbed my drum to use, on the fly. And I sat on the side stage and I was watching him play. And when Igor hits the snare drum, the whole rig jumps, man. Like the stand, the drum, everything. Like when he slams that the whole thing's like boom, boom, jumping. And I'm like, oh my God, he may be the one guy that can break my snare head, but it was cool. He made it through, man. So yeah, it's a tough snare head. And I've been using them for a long time, ever since Majesty and Decay. But yeah, pinstripes on all the toms. Cymbals, very lucky to be endorsed by Sabian, and I love all the cymbals I have. I have exactly what I want. For this album, I added a huge ice bell on the right hand side, the biggest one they make, and I use it on the song Acts of God and a couple of the other tunes, but especially for that one. And I bought it specifically for that song. I've never bought a cymbal for one specific piece of music. That was it. So that was cool. That was the newest edition. My cymbal setup is super China crazy. So I've got a China on the left, a huge China on the right, baby China in the middle, and then another small China over here in the cluster with my right side hi-hats and my giant China. So it's giant China, small China, right side hi-hats. And I do a lot of patterns on this album, a lot of patterns in that cluster. Between those three and my ride, which is also right there, I'm doing all kinds of stuff, trying to accentuate the guitar rhythms and stuff like that. And pedals. Also, I just recently got endorsed by Axis pedals, which I've been using those for about 6 years now. I was an Iron Cobra guy for life. And then I broke my leg about 6 years ago in 3 places. And after when I was rehabbing from that, in order to get back at it quick, because I didn't want Immo to have to cancel any shows. I didn't want them to have to hire anyone to fill in for me or whatever. So I decided to switch over to the Axis and get like the lighter feel, super accurate E-crit triggering was super helpful too, because just, you know, when I was rehabbing my right foot, it just didn't have the accuracy and control, you know what I'm saying? So if I was dealing with an acoustic trigger, you know, it wasn't as consistent. It didn't have the consistency that I needed. So that helped a lot. So I switched over to longboard, Axis A's, with the E-kit setup, and I've been rolling with that since. Take those with me everywhere, and I think that about rounds it out. I use some Vader Los Angeles sticks. I moved down from a 2B ProMart 2B Natural, which was my regular stick for a while, and then I started to get, you know, hand soreness, wrist soreness, that kind of thing. And a friend of mine who's actually huge was like, dude, why do you use these giant drumsticks? And I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? You're huge. You should be using giant drumsticks. He's like, no. And he pretty much forced me to try these 5As, and I fell in love with them. I've been using them ever since.
Yeah, I know the Los Angeles one you're talking about too. I actually I have my sticks lying around here somewhere, but I actually use 2B. So
yeah,
just because I like the big feel of it.
I liked it because back in the day when I was just starting to play death metal and get into it and stuff, I went to a Cannibal Corpse show, and I managed to get a hold of Paul Mazurkiewicz before he left the stage after the show. And I asked him, I was like, yo, dude, I'm playing death metal. I practice you all the time. You know, what can you give me some advice? You know, what's the secret to playing fast for a long time? And then he told me, he was like, in so many words, economy of motion. You know, he's like, you can't have a lot of wild movements. He's like, you know, if you're trying to play your cymbals up here and your drums are down here, you know, you can't be swinging around. He's like, the more you can control that and keep everything in one space, then you can go faster and you can do it for a long amount of time. And so that was perfect for the 2Bs, because you get that pivot point.
Yeah,
you didn't have to swing hard to make a lot of noise because the sticks were heavy, you know what I'm saying? So I loved them, but eventually it just got the beating on my elbows and my wrists stuff. And I do all kinds of other shit. You know, I ride dirt bikes, quads, and martial arts, and lifting weights, and all this other bullshit that beats up my body too. So it probably didn't help. But I'm able to keep doing that now that I use the 5As, you know, and it doesn't bother me so much. I'm acclimated to it now. It feels good.
Fucking badass, man. Some good advice from fucking one of the best drummers too out there too.
Fuck yeah, dude. I was lucky. I'll never forget that night.
Yeah. Well, what other drummers did you look up to or kind of learn from, so to speak?
Alex Marquez was huge, dude. He's my personal god for death metal drumming. He brought like a sweet fucking swinging style to it. You know what I mean? It wasn't straightforward. He had great dynamics with his hands, great techniques with his hands. His filling, where he does like 4 on the hands over 2 on the feet, you know, and the way he would mix that in, dude, that blew my mind. It changed everything. And I started playing that shit, but I was playing it wrong. When I first heard it, I thought it was 3 over 3. So I played 3 hits on the hands and 3 on the feet. And I still do that now. I never lost it, but you know, after a certain amount of time, I realized he was doing 4 over 2 for most of them anyway. But yeah, I loved Alex Marquez. Great speed, great double bass. When I was learning how to play double bass, I used to play a ton of Malevolent, because he would play fast, but he would play like patterns, you know, like so bursts. So I only had to play fast for so long. Then I graduated to Steve Asham and Deicide, who was another huge influence. And with Legion was just as fast as what Alex was doing on Retribution, but he was playing fucking double bass from beginning of the song to the end of the song, which is what I love. And my band back then that I was in before I joined Immolation was the same way. Like, the song was double bass from beginning to end. So, and I got that from practicing to him all the time. And Craig Smolowski, you know, obviously the first Immolation, his style's so weird. And I love it. You know, it's real slithery, you know what I mean?
Slithery.
Yeah. Like kind of weird, liquidy. And also Stefan Provencher, who played on the first 2 Gorguts albums, was huge. When I heard the Erosion of Sanity, that like totally changed everything for me. That came out like the year after I graduated from high school, and I was getting ready to go to college for music. And I heard that, and it just kind of said to me that, yeah, death metal is barbaric, but you can do whatever you want. There's no rules. And he was doing stuff that was like super legitimate real drumming. You know what I mean? It wasn't like you couldn't say he's just banging shit as fast as you can. You know what I mean? What a lot of people were saying back then about death metal. And there was, you know, some barbaric drumming back then. Yeah, of course, drumming was very barbaric.
Yeah.
But when I heard Stefane's performance on Erosion of Sanity, that was a new level. He was doing sick shit on double ride cymbals and double hi-hats and shit like that. And like Sean Reiner, you know, the stuff that he was doing with it, I was like, oh, okay, this can be a legitimate style of drumming. You know, there's no rules that say you can't do this or that or try this or that.
Exactly.
That was the best thing about death metal. There was just no rules at all. So.
And Immolation doesn't seem to really follow any rules. Like you guys have always had that unique sound. It's New York death metal, but like it's so like I almost say like avant-garde a lot of the times because it's just the rhythms and the patterns are just so complex, but not like overly technical like some of these bands like just get so crazy nowadays where it's just like has no feel. But you guys, what Immolation does, definitely has feel, has a soul, and it's dark, man.
Yeah, it's kind of progressive in a non-tech way, if you can follow me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Bob's the rule breaker. He doesn't give a shit about any other death metal bands. You know, those guys, Ross and Bob, I think, well, especially Bob, but I don't think they listen to a whole lot of death metal, especially not modern death metal. You know what I mean? When they listen to music, they listen to other stuff. Yeah. And so he's got this and so Bob's got this a very undiluted style. So not a lot of things from death metal affect him, you know what I mean? And what he does what he wants, and he has this vision of what he wants to do. And it's very much oftentimes not death metal-y. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the stuff on this new album, when he would send it over to me, I listened to the riff and I'm just like, is that even death metal? Like, you know, so, but you know, once you put everything on and it sounds like it, you know what I mean? So you got the whole album, right? You got the whole thing.
I've not, somebody else jumped, beat me to it, one of our crew. So they're going to review it. So, but I'm like, I just missed the email, you know, cause he puts out a message like, hey, it's available. And I was like, oh, damn. It was
you'll see what I mean. I mean, there's some parts on the album where you're like, the guitar, it sounds great and dark and heavy, but it's not a traditional death metal riff by any means. You know what I mean? And then, but then the drums are heavy, or you know what I mean? So it's just like, it works out.
I'm looking forward to it. We're talking with Steve, drummer for Immolation. Acts of God comes out February 18th, right when they hit the road. Be sure you catch them. Head to Immolation.info, I believe, for all your pre-order needs. They have some sick bundles there. A chance to win like a nice signed drum head, I believe, right?
Yeah, it sticks. The label's doing a lot of cool stuff with this one. It's awesome.
Very good. How's Nuclear Blast treating you? This is like, I believe, your 6th album or your 4th album with them?
Yep, 4th album with them. Great. I love those guys. You know, I personally know, you know, pretty much everybody that we're dealing with over there, which makes it awesome. You know, it's just like, you know, it's like there's a brotherhood, you know what I mean? And since I've been with the band, no one has taken care of us or paid this kind of attention to us before. So yeah, I got no complaints there. That's that's a real happy arrangement. Yeah.
Have you seen a resurgence in death metal, say maybe the past 5, maybe 10 years? Like has it gone more popular, dare I say?
I don't know, man. It seems to be really on fire. Social media has exploded things, and we're seeing so many offshoots and genres and subgenres and stuff like that. It's just amazing, like because you know, you and I have known death metal since it was in its infancies and since it was like mail order shit, you know. So yeah, it does seem to be on fire. I don't know if it's been an explosion, but a lot of it comes down to the bands that you expect to put out good albums putting out good albums. That helps, you know what I mean? And then there's a trickle down effect. These other bands are influenced by that, and you know, they're coming up and they're doing their thing and they're taking the example of these bands. So yeah, I think as long as everybody comes out and does their best and puts out an album that's, you know, every song is good, or is, you know what I mean, then it's going to continue to proliferate. It's going to continue to grow. The circumstances over the last, you know, 2.5, 3 years or whatever you want to call it, or longer, have been especially trying on people. And death metal is the type of music that people that are under duress rely on. to de-stress and to you know, to
Cannot
help them
agree more.
balance out. You know what I mean? To
Cannot agree
let
more.
out some frustration and stuff like that. So,
Right.
yeah, I think that's what everybody needs right now. There's a
Totally,
good death
man.
metal tour, man. So
Totally, and the fans are gonna get that from this album. 15 tracks, man. That's also badass too, right?
yeah,
As
they kept
opposed to like 9 with an intro, and it's like,
yeah. No, I know when he sent me the 9th song or the 10th song, I was like, okay, well, this is it. You know what I mean? But then he kept coming, and I was like, oh, holy shit, you know. And then there was talk of maybe not using some, maybe use them for the next album. But you know, when you, like you said, it's been whatever 5 years or something. Like, just give them a good album. You know what I mean? Why not?
Yeah.
Just give it to them. So.
Well, Steve, I want a half hour has gone by so fucking fast. It's
Yeah,
good time to talk to you, man. Just real quick, what kind of advice would you like give a drummer like me, like, that's trying to make a name for himself in, metal out here?
Well, the rules have changed, man, and it seems like today you've got to have a social media or an online presence. To set yourself up as quickly as possible to be able to produce quality content. And I know that doesn't sound like, what most people get into playing music for,
Right.
but that's unfortunately just part of what goes with it. You know what I mean? And that's a lesson I'm learning late in my career, but it's a lesson nonetheless that you should come to grips with as soon as possible. So, get a nice room or a place where you can record or videotape yourself. And, doing that is not only good for you professionally, as far as enabling you to have media to expose yourself to other people, but it's also really, really good for your playing, because anytime you record yourself, you're going to start improving and noticing things that you need to improve. And so whether it's audio, video, or whatever, that's going to help you improve exponentially over just sitting in the band room and playing over and over and over without critiquing yourself, so
Just like, a visual of yourself playing and stuff like that, and you'll start to see little things that you pick
you'll
up
see
on.
things, you'll hear things,
Bad habits or
until
something.
until you hit that record button, you might think you're just smoking along, but then you listen back and you're like, ooh, I need to work on this or that. It happens to me all the time, trust me. So
Again, Steve, Immolation, Acts of God, February 18th, and a tour. Any last words for the fans out there that are just eagerly awaiting Immolation?
Man, I've missed everybody. We've got friends all over the place. And we're coming soon. We got like another 2 weeks, and then we'll be coming city to city to visit y'all. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited to play the new tunes and to jam with the bands that we've taken with us, share the stage with. So should be good, man. Should be good. I look forward to seeing you when we get out there on the West Coast, man.
Totally, brother. Totally. We'll fucking throw some back, and
For sure. Yeah. Don't hesitate. Come up. Like I said, introduce yourself. I'll introduce you to the boys. They're super cool. And
sounds great, brother. Sounds great. I appreciate your time, and give a horns and a fist bump to the rest of the Immolation camp.
Anytime, man.
Acts of God, February 18th. Go to Immolation.info for all your pre-orders. And Steve, thanks a lot for your time, brother. Have a great one.
Dude, thanks for having me on KNAC. I appreciate it.